Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, we are going to solve another psychology is past paper. This is paper 2 from research methods. This paper is from May-June 2021. The paper's component is 2-2 and it is for 1 hour 30 minutes. The first question from this paper says, state what is meant by an open question. So we just need to answer this question in one sentence or one word. So I am writing that open question are the questions, or open question is the question that asks the participants to describe or explain. Part B of question 1 says, outline one open question from the study by Dement and Kleitman, sleep and dream. So one open question from this study was that this study asked participants to describe their dreams, their dream content. Now question number 2 says, in the study by Baron Cohen et al. ICE test, two of the group of participants used were group 1 AS-HFA participants and group 4 participants from the general population. So the first group contained participants with AS and HFA and the second one was from the general population. Now what we have to do in part A, we have to state two similarities between the participants in group 1 and group 4. So one similarity was of age. Both the group contained participants with the same age, and the second one was that their IQ levels were same. Their IQ levels were matching. IQ level were the same. Now part B says, state one difference between how group 1 and group 4 were selected other than being diagnosed with AS and HFA. So one difference was that group 1 was recruited through volunteer sampling, while group 4 was recruited through random sampling. So we know that one difference was that group 1 were volunteer sampling, or they were self-selected, and group 4 were randomly selected. Now question number 3 says, the study by Pilyavin et al. Subway Samaritans raised ethical issues of right to withdraw and deception. So two of the issues were right to withdraw and deception. Now we need to explain why the study by Pilyavin raised these ethical issues. So the first one was right to withdraw. So this issue was raised because the participants we first need to tell that what right to withdraw means, right? So participants, it means that participants can leave a study at any time, and they should not be pressurized to continue. However, in this study, participants could not withdraw as they believed that the setting occurred naturally. They were not aware of the study at all, so how could they even withdraw? So they were not even aware that they are being studied, so they did not have the right to withdraw. They were not aware that they are being observed in the subway carriage. Now, for the second one, you can write that deception is when the participants are given false information about the aim or procedure of the study, and in this study they believed that the victim was sick or drunk. In actual, they believed that all of it was happening in real life. Now question number 4 says, in this study by Pepperberg parrot learning, the sample was only one parrot, Alex. This parrot could have differed from other parrots of the same species. Explain how two possible differences could have affected Pepperberg's study. So one can be that since Alex was the only participant in this study, so Alex could have been more intelligent, which would have made grey parrots seem that they could understand the concepts when in actual they could not. This is because Alex's results were being applied to the whole population of grey parrots. His results were being generalized to the whole species of grey parrots. That is why Pepperberg could have misunderstood Alex's results for the whole population of grey parrots. And the second difference can be that Alex was kept in a laboratory and not out in the wild. So Alex had already been studied for years because he was the one that had experience of previous studies of previous researches. So he was already studied for many years and had the experiences that would have made his responses different from wild parrots. So these are the two differences that could have affected Pepperberg's study. Now question number 5 says the mean and the mode are measures of central tendency. Explain why the mean could be a better measure of central tendency than the mode. So we first need to clarify that what it means by mean and what it means by mode, and after that, once you have referred to the definition of mean and mode in your mind, then you can write the differences. So the mean uses values. Mean is the average and mode is the frequency. So the mean uses values, whereas the mode only looks at frequency. So that is their difference. So this means that the mean represents all the data because it is the average of all the data. Whereas the mode does not. So that is why mean could have been a better measure of central tendency as compared to the mode. Now question number 5 part B says explain why a researcher may have to use the mode instead of the mean. So for this you can write that when the data is in categories, the researcher finds mode easier. Because usually in categories you get answers such as yes and no, so it's easier to basically identify which category is being used frequently, either yes or no's. Now question number 6 is describe participant observation and non-participant observation using any examples. So it is for 6 marks. You're going to get 3 marks for participant observation and 3 marks for non-participant observation, but 2 marks are going to be for explaining what participant observation is, and 3rd mark is going to be for the example. And then again the same for the non-participant observation, 2 marks are going to be for the description and 1 mark for example. So let's say you can write that for participant observation, in participant observation, the researcher watches the participants as part of the ongoing activity and participant participants may or may not be aware of the researcher observing them, because it depends if the study is covert or overt. Now for the example, you can write that for example, in Bill Evans' study, the observer appeared to be a passenger. So this is the example you are giving from a core study. If you want to give any other general example, you can write that if an observer joins in with children's game to record their behavior, that is also part of the participant observation. Now for non-participant observation, you can write in non-participant observation, observer is not involved in the situation being studied. They often use one-way mirror or cameras to observe. Now, for example, Bandura et al. Used a one-way mirror to observe the children. Now moving on to section B, question number 7. It says two friends, Zoe and Bill, are conducting a natural experiment. They are collecting data by observing whether young or old people are more likely to become frustrated when trying to get on a busy train. Suggest how the friends could operationalize their independent variable. So first, read the prompt again. It says they are collecting data by observing whether young or old people are more likely to become frustrated when trying to get on a busy train. So their independent variable over here is young people or old people. So these two are the independent variable, the IVs. Now we need to suggest how they can operationalize it. So you can write any number up as per your own wish. You can write that, for example, young can be under 20 and old can be over 60. If you're just writing young and old people, that is not going to be the correct answer. You are going to get 0 for that because if you're just writing that young and old people, that is just you telling what the IVs of this study are. You need to tell how the two friends can operationalize young and old. Now part 2 says, for the way you suggested in A1, explain one strength of operationalizing the independent variable in this way. So if they are operationalizing the independent variable in this way, the way we have suggested above, it can be a strength because it would be easy to distinguish who was young and who was old, because these categories are very different. Now part B says, explain what is meant by a dependent variable using Zwi and Bill's study as an example. So what is meant by a dependent variable? A DV or a dependent variable. The dependent variable is the one being measured. For example, from this study we can write, for example, frustration. Because over here the prompt said more likely to become frustrated when trying to get on a busy train. So frustration is the dependent variable in this study. Now part C says the friends agree that they should collect data over several days but have different plans for when they should do this. Zwi plans to collect data on the same time each day. Explain one strength of Zwi's plan. So why will it be helpful for Zwi to collect the data at the same time each day? It can be because collecting data at the same time each day will improve the which will increase the reliability of the study because other variables that could affect frustration can be constant. Now, part 2 says Bill plans to collect data over a range of different times each day. Explain one strength of Bill's plan. Now, Bill's plan can help because collecting data at different times will increase the validity by being sure that the only factor affecting frustration is age and not when people travel. So if he finds that old people get more frustrated at any time of the day, so that is how he can be sure that time is not the factor affecting the frustration, but it is the age only. Now, question number 8 says that JC is conducting a laboratory experiment to investigate the effect of eating chocolate on mood. This is the aim of JC's study. She predicts that eating chocolate will make people happier than not eating chocolate. She has 20 participants. So her hypothesis is that eating chocolate will make people happier than not eating chocolate. Now explain why JC is able to make a causal prediction. So JC is able to make a causal prediction. This is because she can be sure or she can be certain that the independent variable is the only cause of change in dependent variable, because she knows that she might be sure about the fact that there are no confounding or extraneous variables which can impact her study. Now it says JC gave each participant a number from 1 to 20. She has a hat which contains cards that are numbered from 1 to 20. She takes 10 cards from the hat and uses the 10 people with those numbers as her control group. She uses the remaining 10 participants as her experimental group. Name the process JC is using in this part of the study. So you need to name the process. So this is known as a random process or random sampling. This is random. Now you need to explain one strength of this part of JC's procedure. So you need to explain how random sampling or random part of this procedure can help her study. So this is because so that no other factor such as participant variable, which is the differences between individuals. So no other factors such as participant variable could affect the study. Because participant variables such as being bad tempered can affect the mood, and by allocating people randomly, between the two levels of independent variables, different moods can be spread evenly between the two groups or two conditions. It's not like people with bad tempered end up being in the same group, and people with patience and people with happy mood end up being in the same group. So just to make sure that this does not happen and participant variable does not reflect or impact her results, she allocated the participants randomly to spread the two different moods evenly in both the groups. Now part C says explain the experimental design that JC is using. So over here JC is using an independent measures design, and since the question does not ask you to state or name, it asks you to explain the experimental design, and it is for 2 marks, so you need to write why is it a independent measures design. So it is an independent measures design because there are different participants in both the groups, or you can write in both the levels of independent variable. Now question number 9 says Dr. Lee is measuring two variables, tiredness and generosity, on a scale of 0 to 10. He finds a strong positive correlation between the two variables. So there is a strong positive correlation. This whole word is important. A strong positive correlation. Now sketch a graph on the axis below using crosses to show the patterns of Dr. Lee's results. You must label the axis. So now by now we know that both of there are two variables, so you can write any variable at any axis. So for example, you can write tiredness over here and generosity over here, and since it is a positive correlation, so both of them will increase together, and there is a strong positive positive correlation, so the crosses are supposed to be close to each other. So you can make something like this. There should be a line of best fits, so you can make a line of best fit like this, and the crosses are close to each other. And you also need to before making this line of best fit, you also need to mark the points. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Again 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, and line of best fit with crosses close to each other. Now you need to write a null hypothesis for Dr. Lee's study. So a null hypothesis for his study can be that any correlation between tiredness and generosity is due to chance only. Now you need to suggest one advantage of using correlations compared to experiments. So you need to compare the advantage or the strength of correlation to experiments. So correlations can be used to investigate variables that cannot be manipulated because it would be impractical to manipulate them, but in an experiment it would be essential to manipulate the independent variables. Now part C, section number C, question number 10 says Seth is planning a case study to investigate the communication and emotions in a family. The family consists of a mother, father, grandmother, and one son. They live in a remote house and do not interact with other people often. Describe how Seth could conduct a case study to investigate the communication and emotion in this family. So for designing a study, we know that there are a few major and a minor questions. So the major questions are how, what, how, who, and when and where are the minors. I'm going to write this answer in points. You guys obviously need to write it in full paragraph form. Now there are these measures. So talking about the measure, the how. So how can he conduct a case study? If he is conducting a case study, then it can include multiple methods. So if you're talking about who, his sample, we already know his sample is this whole family consisting of the mother, father, grandmother, and a son. Now his data collecting technique can differ because he can use multiple methods. So his data technique can be that he can have interviews with each participant, and he can observe the family and the way they interact with each other, and for that he can have categories of behavior such as sitting with each other or spending time with each other, sitting with each other for more than 15 minutes, that can be counted as spending time with each other. So that is how they are connecting with each other emotionally. And then he can also observe then communicating or talking to each other, talking with each other happily. So these can be the categories of his structured observation, and apart from it, he can give them a Likert scale to ask how satisfied they are while communicating and spending time with each other. This can be a scale from 0 meaning not satisfied at all to 5 meaning extremely satisfied. In the interview, he can also ask them about their emotions. How do they feel when they are talking to each other? How fulfilled they are? Are their needs completed? Are their needs fulfilled? Or do they feel happy and satisfied when they talk with each other, when they communicate about their problems to each other? And such questions can be asked in the interview. Now, after this is done, what Seth can do is he can compile data from each of their interviews and observations, and then he can compare what they answered in the interviews with what he observed. And then he can also compare their Likert scale ratings and take out the mode, the most repeated value, the frequency. Now after this, you can write that this whole case study will take place in their home, and it might take a week or so to observe them and interview them and get to know about their communication. So this is how you can plan a whole case study. Now you need to identify one practical weakness or limitation with the procedure you have described in your answer to part A and suggest how your study might be done differently to overcome the problem. And you do not need to refer to ethics or sampling in your answer. So one practical limitation or weakness from the study, from the whole procedure we have mentioned above, I can say that since he is observing the family, they might show demand characteristics as they would know that they are being observed. And to overcome this, what Seth could do, Seth could install cameras in their home when he visits them for the interview. You need to mention that he can install the cameras in their home without telling the family members. He can ask his assistant to do so or something like that, in a way that the family does not get to know about it. So when he does so, he can observe their behavior through the camera and they would not get to know about the observations, and hence they will not be able to show demand characteristics, or the social desirability effect will not impact their results. So this is it for this paper. I hope everything was clear to you guys.